Milk in our grandparents' time was a nutritious drink, but the milk we are drinking today in the UK. White poison. The industry has turned milk into a toxic liquid. Do you know where it comes from? It may be a mixture of hundreds of unnamed farms blended with all sorts of additives never meant for humans. And then you wonder why you feel bloated, tired, why your cholesterol rises even though you are dieting. Many people blame age, but they do not realize that the cheap milk, industrial milk blended milk they have been drinking for years is the silent culprit. Today, I will show you 7 harmful types of milk that many families in the UK still believe are safe. I will also clearly tell you 3 safe, trustworthy types of milk. But most importantly, I will show you how to identify toxic milk, the secret the dairy industry has never wanted you to know. If you still drink milk every day, this section may save your health for the next 10 years. Number 1. Arla. Do you know just last year, Arla went through a shock that the whole UK had to talk about? People poured milk down the sink, threw Lurpak into the bin, posted boycott videos everywhere, all because of one name that sounded chilling on its own, the additive Bovaer. The issue here was not about scientific right or wrong, but the unsettling feeling that your body, especially after 50, is absorbing something you were never clearly informed about. What is more concerning is that only 1 year later, in 2025, most consumers have forgotten the scandal that once stirred the whole country, and Arla still sits comfortably on supermarket shelves, as if nothing ever happened. I believe you have at least once bought Arla. In the UK, this brand is so familiar that you do not even think about it. It sits right at eye level in Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's and Asda. Every home has Cravendale Lacto-Free or Lurpak in the fridge. For older adults, Arla seems even more trustworthy because of that clean Scandinavian image. Pure white milk, decent packaging, not suspiciously cheap, but not too expensive either. It holds an always safe place in our minds. And that sense of safety is exactly what makes the story worrying. In 2024, Arla announced it was trialling the additive Bovaer for cows. This is 3-NOP intended to reduce methane. It sounds like it is for the environment, but for consumers, especially older consumers, all they hear is the word chemical. And so the storm erupted. People boycotted, felt angry at the lack of transparency, felt unsettled about whether that substance had ended up in the milk or not. The Food Safety Authority said it was approved and did not affect milk. But as you know, consumer trust is not something that can be patched with a few statements. And then time did what it always does, it made us forget. The cost of living rose, people returned to familiar choices. Arla remained, shelves stayed full, no one asked whether the trials were still continuing, which products were affected, or how many farms used the additive. This silence is what worries me for anyone over 50, because your body can no longer process everything as quickly as before. The liver, kidneys and immune system all slow down. An additive being approved does not mean an older body will react the same way as a younger body. And the greatest concern is the lack of transparency. You do not know which herd your milk came from, whether it was part of the trials or how it was controlled. Older people drink milk daily long term, and this uncertainty alone is enough to cause stress. And stress directly affects the heart. Many people become so worried that they stop drinking milk altogether and end up lacking calcium, weakening their bones and joints. But they do not realize the real issue was simply choosing the wrong brand. I am not saying this to make you panic or to ban Arla completely, but to help you be more alert when putting a product into a body that has entered a more sensitive stage. If you are concerned about additives, choose more transparent brands, choose milk from grass-fed cows, pasture-based, or try goat's milk if your digestion is weak. What matters most is that you understand what you are buying, not that you drink out of habit or because it is cheap. And if you think additives in cattle feed are the worst thing on the UK milk shelf, wait for the second type. There is a brand that almost everyone thinks is the perfect alternative to cow's milk, but in reality, it is not something the UK government welcomes. Number 2. Oatly. Do you know what startles me most about Oatly? Not the rapeseed oil, not the sugar from starch, but this cold fact: even the UK court does not allow it to be called milk anymore. If the law does not consider it milk, then what exactly have you been drinking all this time, and how is it affecting your bones, heart and blood sugar after 50? For many people in the UK, especially older adults wanting something lighter, avoiding lactose or wanting to live more healthily, Oatly is a trendy choice. You go into Pret or Costa, order a latte, and the barista automatically offers Oatly. The branding is incredibly clever, clean, modern, and planet-friendly. You look at the carton and instantly believe it is natural, better than cow's milk, easier to digest, lower in fat. But it is precisely that sense of safety that makes this name worrying. It is not like Arla, where people know there was a controversial additive. Oatly is more dangerous in the sense that it makes you believe you are doing something good for your body, when in reality, things are not like that at all. Let me be direct: Oatly is not milk, but starch water. In production, they use enzymes to break starch into sugars, mainly maltose. And sugar is still sugar even when the label says it comes from oats. Many people stop drinking cow's milk because they fear lactose spikes their blood sugar, then drink Oatly every morning with sugar levels that are far from low. For someone pre-diabetic or trying to stabilize blood sugar, this is a contradiction. You think you are choosing something healthy, but liquid starch sugar can spike blood glucose even faster than carbohydrates in meals. Then there is the oil issue. To create the richness and the nice foam needed for coffee, Oatly adds a little rapeseed oil. It sounds harmless, but think about this. The British diet is already overloaded with omega-6, from frying oils, baked goods and packaged foods. Adding another refined oil every day is like adding to the burden of chronic inflammation in a body over 50. I meet many patients who say they quit cow's milk to reduce cholesterol, yet their belly fat and cholesterol still do not drop. When I ask, it turns out they drink oat latte every morning. You see, the danger here is not one specific toxic ingredient, but the metabolic effect that accumulates silently. So why do people still buy it? Because they believe plant-based is always healthier than animal-based. Because the packaging is beautiful, and the environmental messaging sounds virtuous. Because cafes promote oat latte as the premium choice. And because many assume Oatly is nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. But it is not. Oatly is much lower in protein, not a natural calcium source, and lacking vitamin B12 and iodine, meaning that if you drink it long-term without compensating, older adults can easily develop weak bones, fatigue, cognitive decline, and weakened immunity. I am not telling you to stop Oatly completely, but I want you to use it as a drink, not as a full milk replacement. If your goal is a healthy heart, strong bones, and stable blood sugar, you need real dairy or alternatives that are properly fortified. Oat drink should be a secondary choice, not the main one. And if you think Oatly is worrying, wait for the next cheap milk. There are bottles so cheap that I cannot help but wonder what has been cut out to sell them to you at that price. Number 3. Tesco Everyday Value Milk. Have you ever looked at a bottle of Tesco Everyday Value Milk and wondered how it can be that unbelievably cheap? Let me be honest, no agricultural product can be cheaper than the market average without something being cut. As you know, Tesco is not a bad company. But their value milk line exists based on a very clear principle: the more costs that are cut, the cheaper the milk becomes. So where do they cut? In the places the buyer cannot see. Cows rarely go outdoors, mostly living in large-scale indoor systems. When cows are not eating natural grass, and instead switch to mostly grain-based feed, the entire nutritional profile of the milk changes. Milk from grass-fed cows is naturally richer in omega-3 and CLA, which are anti-inflammatory compounds essential for heart health, joints, and memory. Milk from grain-fed cows, on the other hand, is richer in omega-6 and low in omega-3, creating a flat and poorer nutritional profile. For younger people, the difference is not very noticeable. But for people over 50, whose bodies are already silently inflamed, whose joints begin to ache in the mornings, whose cardiovascular system demands more care, this is not a small matter. I meet many people who say they drink value milk because it is easy to buy, convenient, and they do not feel any difference. But the difference in this milk is not something you feel immediately. It accumulates day by day. When omega-6 is too high and omega-3 is too low, the body gradually moves toward chronic inflammation. You may notice your joint pain lasts longer, your energy drops in the afternoons, your memory is less sharp. Even cholesterol and blood pressure are easier to destabilize. And no one thinks these signs are linked to the cheap bottle of milk in the fridge. And that is just talking about nutrition. There is also the production process. To ensure cheap milk can be stored for long and transported far, it must undergo strong heat treatment. Under high heat, proteins denature more. When you drink it, it is still protein, but the quality is lower. In your coffee cup, you will see the milk layer separate more easily, sometimes with a slightly metallic or strangely sweet taste. For you, a slightly odd taste is still acceptable. But for a body over 50, where protein absorption has already declined, drinking degraded protein daily does not bring much benefit. Cows in indoor systems also require additional feed additives to support digestion and maintain production. I am not saying these are toxic or directly harmful to you, but I want you to imagine that this system is not designed to create better milk, but to maintain the operation of an enclosed farming model. And when the milk source begins with an animal relying on support tools, the final quality cannot match milk from cows eating natural grass outdoors. And we are not done yet. There is another cheap milk line that contains an additional issue Tesco does not have. Something I must seriously warn you about. Number 4. Morrison's Savers. Milk. Do you know there are types of milk that do not worry me because of what is inside the bottle, but because of the entire system behind it? And Morrison's Savers milk is exactly that type. You look at that cheap bottle and think you are saving a few pence, but to me the real cost lies in how that milk is produced. And for a body that has passed 50, the things you cannot see are exactly what you should fear most. The first thing that makes me cautious is not the bottle, but the story behind its source. Savers milk does not come from any specific farm. It is blended from many different farms depending on the time, depending on the batch, and sometimes not even from the UK. This means you do not know where the herd lived, what they were fed, whether they grazed outdoors or spent their lives in crowded indoor units. For younger people, shifting sources may not matter at all, but for middle-aged and older adults, the body is very sensitive to instability. One week the fat content is like this, the next week it changes. One week the cows eat more grass, the next week it is mostly grain. And when you drink something unstable every day, your long-term health becomes unstable as well. Then comes the matter of farming. In the cheapest segment, I can say it plainly, grazing is almost a luxury. Cows are mostly kept indoors and eat more grain than grass. Milk from grass-fed cows is rich in omega-3 and CLA compounds that reduce inflammation, protect the heart, and help the joints feel lighter. Milk from grain-heavy feeding is rich in omega-6 and poor in omega-3, creating a ratio that is not good at all for older adults. You may not feel the difference immediately, but long-term, it pushes the body into chronic inflammation, showing up as persistent joint aches, a more tired heart, and a clearer drop in memory under stress. And that is not to mention processing. For cheap milk to store long and travel far, it must be heavily heat-treated. the proteins in the milk become significantly denatured. You still feel it is protein when you drink it, but the quality drops and absorption becomes poorer. For people past 50 whose muscle maintenance and immunity rely heavily on good protein, this is a disadvantage you do not even know you are carrying. Not to mention, this type of milk is often thin, pale, and separates easily in hot drinks. That is not only a matter of appearance, it is a sign the proteins have been stressed heavily. And I must be honest with you, Morrison's Savers milk is still not the cheapest or riskiest milk. There is another type whose source changes so constantly that you can hardly know where your milk came from today. We will talk about that next. Number 5. Asda Smart Price Milk. Do you think you are drinking the same milk every day? If it is Asda Smart Price, then I must tell you the truth. It is very likely that today you are drinking milk from one herd, next week from a farm elsewhere, and perhaps even from another country. Asda Smart Price is Asda's cheapest milk line, so their top priority is low cost. And to keep the cost low, contracts must be flexible, buying from wherever is cheapest at the time. That is why one week the milk comes from a UK farm with good standards, and the next week from a high-volume indoor farm in the EU. The label looks the same, the taste seems the same at first glance, so people easily think they are drinking one stable milk. But the truth is completely different. Each week the milk may come from a different source, with cows eating different diets, living in different conditions, and the milk being processed at different levels. For young people this may not cause any issues, but for older adults, such constant weekly changes are exactly what the body struggles to adapt to. I want you to picture this. When cows eat more grain and less grass, the milk becomes low in omega-3, low in CLA, and high in omega-6. When the source keeps changing, these ratios also change. One week you drink milk with lower omega-6, the next week much higher. For young bodies, the adjustment is easy, but for you whose joints have mild inflammation, whose cholesterol is not as stable, whose memory is sensitive to fluctuations, this instability keeps the body stuck in a half-well, half-struggling condition, not ill, but not truly comfortable either. Not to mention, Asda must process the milk very strongly so that all bottles look the same despite the varying sources. The milk must be homogenized, heated heavily, and filtered intensively to balance differences between batches. And whenever processing is, this strong proteins are denatured. You still taste milk, but your body does not absorb it well. People over 50 need high-quality protein to maintain muscle and immunity, yet stressed protein delivers much lower nutritional value. That is why many older people feel slightly bloated, slightly uncomfortable, or slightly tired in the mornings after drinking milk without knowing the reason. What worries me most is this lack of stability. Older bodies need consistency to control blood sugar, inflammation hormones, and circadian rhythm. But if every week you drink a different milk, despite the label looking identical, the body has to reset constantly. And constant resetting makes you tired, disrupts digestion, increases joint pain, and makes it harder to maintain clarity throughout the day. Number 6. Müller Fresh Whole Milk. There are cheap milks that make me cautious because their price is too low to believe. But there are milks that worry me because they are too familiar, too famous, and far too easy to trust without thinking. Müller is exactly that type. No one doubts it, no one questions it, and no one imagines that behind this big brand lies an industrial system no different from the cheap milks we just discussed. You look at Müller and see a big brand present everywhere, from supermarkets and schools to hospitals. That familiarity creates a sense of safety. Older adults, especially those who shop by habit, often assume a large brand must be better. But the reality is not quite like that. Müller buys milk from a massive network, thousands of farms each with their own standards, feeding regimes and varying indoor and outdoor levels. This means consumers have no way of knowing which farm their milk came from today, under what conditions and at what quality. With such a large system, the stability people think they have is actually just a feeling. Then comes production. When milk comes from thousands of farms to make every bottle look the same, taste the same, and feel the same, the factory must process it intensely. The milk must be homogenized, standardized continuously, and heated strongly to ensure every batch meets the same standard. It may look professional, but this is still industrial milk, not milk from cows raised organic or pasture style as many people wrongly imagine. In other words, you pay for a big brand, but the production style is not much different from cheap milk. Indoor farming also returns in the Müller story. Large farms, to maintain high and stable output, keep cows indoors more and feed more grain. When cows eat more grain, omega-3 and CLA drop significantly while omega-6 rises. The nutritional profile shifts in a direction that is not helpful for older adults. To keep production high, farms also use feed additives. Not additives in your bottle, but a clear sign that the system prioritizes output, not optimal health quality. But to show you the full picture, there is still one more type of milk, seemingly harmless and cheap, but one that represents exactly how the entire UK dairy system operates. And that is the key point you must understand before deciding what to drink every day. Number 7. Aldi, Everyday Essentials Milk. After everything, what still worries you about milk? For me, it is the type so silent that you never hear anyone talk about them. And it is exactly that silence that makes them dangerous. Aldi Everyday Essentials. Milk fits perfectly into that category. No scandals, no noise yet. It is something I must urge you to pause and think about before placing it into your basket. Aldi is known for affordability. Many older adults choose Aldi because of good prices, familiarity, and the feeling that Aldi products are simple and trustworthy. Everyday Essentials. Milk is therefore seen as a basic, harmless choice. You see the white and blue label, the words Everyday Essentials, and assume it is just like any other milk, simply cheaper. But if you ask me, the most worrying part is not the price or the ingredients on the label. It is the invisible part. The origin of this milk is almost unclear. Milk in Aldi's Essentials line is collected from many farms both in the UK and the EU. It is blended before bottling with no farm name, no information about where the cows lived, what they ate, whether they ever grazed outdoors or stayed indoors their whole lives. You do not know the hygiene conditions, the farming practices, or whether standards between farms are consistent. And when you do not know, you cannot control any factor affecting your health. Younger people may not care, but at your age, clarity is sometimes more important than price. Cows in low-cost supply chains are selected for high yield, meaning they are raised to produce a lot of milk. To achieve this, they must be fed more grain and less grass. This makes the milk thinner, lower in omega-3 and lower in CLA, while higher in omega-6. For those over 50, a diet with an imbalanced omega-6 to omega-3 ratio can worsen chronic inflammation, joint pain, heart strain, and memory decline. But you do not know how the herd behind your bottle was raised. But I do not want you to hear only warnings and become fearful. What matters now is not just what to avoid, but knowing how to choose correctly. And if you understand the milk selection principles, designed specifically for those over 50, you will realize the UK milk market is no longer a maze, but a place where you can absolutely find the best choice for your health. Milk selection principles. Milk is still an important food, especially for those over 50. The issue is not whether milk is bad or good, but whether you choose correctly or incorrectly. And if you choose correctly, milk can absolutely be a very good friend to your bones, heart, and digestion. When choosing milk, the first thing I want you to think about is the source. Good milk must have clear origins. You should know where it comes from, how the herd lives, what they eat, and whether the farm is transparent. I know that in the UK, most cheap milk comes from blended multi-farm systems, mostly indoor raised for yield, rather than optimal nutrition. But milk from cows that graze outdoors and eat natural grass will be richer in omega-3 and CLA, helping to reduce inflammation and support your heart and joints. At this age, even small additional benefits can make a very big difference. After the source, you should pay attention to fat levels. Whole milk looks rich, but it is high in saturated fat, which is not ideal for older adults, especially those with high cholesterol. Semi-skimmed or low fat is usually more suitable. You still get calcium, vitamin D, and protein for muscle and bone, but you reduce the burden of unhealthy fats. Just this small change can make your joints lighter and your heart feel more comfortable. If you often feel bloated, have difficulty digesting, or once had to run to the toilet after drinking milk, you may be sensitive to lactose. This is very normal with age because the body gradually loses the ability to digest lactose. In that case, choose lactose-free to ease the burden. You can still drink milk every morning without discomfort for hours. Another thing you must pay attention to is the level of processing. The more heating, cooling, homogenizing, filtering, and separating milk goes through, the more the protein becomes distorted. Younger people may not notice the difference, but older adults absorb protein less efficiently, so overprocessed protein will not help you maintain muscle or strength as you hope. If possible, choose less processed milk or milk from producers who prioritize natural methods. You should also look closely at the ingredients. Not all milk is the same. Some add sugar flavorings and thickeners. These are not suitable for you at this age. Sugar spikes blood sugar, makes you tired, increases cravings, and is not good for anyone with diabetes risk. Choose plain milk without sugar and without flavor. The simpler, the better. Finally, remember that no milk suits everyone. Some do well with whole milk, some with semi-skimmed, some digest lactose-free best, and some feel more comfortable with goat's milk. What you need is to understand what your body needs, what it lacks, and what it tolerates. When you listen to your body, you will naturally know which milk should accompany you for years ahead. And if you still find it difficult to choose, or do not know where to start safely, do not worry. Right after this section, I will show you 3 names that I personally find the most reliable, suitable, and trustworthy for people over 50 in the UK. These 3 brands will help you feel more assured, healthier, and more confident every time you stand in front of the milk aisle. Number 1, Yeo Valley Organic. If I had to choose one name suitable for people over 50 in the UK, I would start with Yeo Valley Organic. Not because it is famous, but because it is transparent and genuinely honest. I am telling you this because Yeo Valley does not hide its origins. You can know where the cows live, how they are raised, what they eat, and in what conditions they live. That is the biggest difference between organic milk and industrial milk. At this age, what you need is not a glamorous brand, but clarity, so you know exactly what you are putting into your body every morning. What I like about Yeo Valley is that their cows are raised organically and grazed. This means the herd eats more grass, spends more time outdoors, relies less on industrial feed, and experiences less stress. These things may sound distant, but it is exactly these small differences that change the quality of milk significantly. Milk from grass-fed cows contains more natural omega-3 and CLA, and these healthy fats help stabilize your heart, reduce joint inflammation, and support clearer memory. At middle and older age, even a little benefit is worth considering. I know many older adults worry about antibiotic or hormone residues in food. With organic dairy, you can feel more secure because UK regulations are strict: no growth hormones, minimal antibiotic use, no chemicals in the cow's feed. This does not mean organic milk is absolutely perfect, but it does mean there is at least a monitoring system protecting you. And when your health has less room for risk, these standards become extremely important. Another point I find suitable for those over 50 is that organic milk is usually processed more gently. It is still pasteurized like all milk, but producers avoid heavy processing to preserve natural proteins and vitamins. With digestion no longer as strong as before, keeping milk closer to its natural form helps you absorb it more easily, feel less bloated, and avoid heaviness after drinking. Of course, organic milk tends to be more expensive, but I always believe that at this age, a little investment in what you drink daily is worth far more than buying medication or dealing with the consequences of choosing the wrong food. Number 2, Delamere Dairy. If you think good milk only means organic or that grass-fed cows are enough, I want you to pause. Because for those over 50, your body does not just need nutritious milk. More importantly, it needs milk your body can tolerate. Not everyone gets on well with cow's milk, even the high-quality organic kind like Yeo Valley. Many people tell me that cow's milk makes them bloated, uncomfortable, and sluggish all morning without knowing why. And if you are one of them, I want you to consider a gentler, more comfortable option that suits an aging, more sensitive digestive system. That is Delamere Dairy Goat's Milk. What makes Delamere completely different from cow's milk is its natural structure. Goat's milk has smaller fat globules, and its protein forms a softer curd in the stomach, making it far easier for the body to process. You will notice the difference in the morning after drinking it. Your stomach feels light without rumbling or heaviness. For younger people, this means nothing, but at your age, how your stomach feels after a glass of milk can affect your whole day. Another thing many people do not know is that goat's milk naturally contains less lactose than cow's milk, and more importantly, it is better tolerated. Many people think they are lactose intolerant, but in fact their body is reacting poorly to A1 cow's protein, causing bloating and digestive upset. Goat's milk naturally contains more A2 protein, and many people feel comfortable immediately, even if they believe they could not tolerate any milk at all. This is something Yeo Valley, regardless of how organic it is, cannot solve, because cow's milk is still cow's milk. Number 3, St. Helens Farm. What makes St. Helens special is that it is not a big supply chain, nor a brand that mixes milk from many farms and standardizes it into identical bottles. This is a family farm in York, and because it is a family farm, they control quality in a way big companies cannot. St. Helens goat's milk is noticeably purer than common goat's milk. The goats are raised with high welfare standards, low stress, more natural feeding, and closely monitored batches. Because of this, the milk smells milder and tastes softer, without the harshness many people expect from goat's milk. You will find it very different from any goat's milk you have had before. For those over 50, especially those who no longer like strong dairy flavors, this lightness helps you drink regularly without discomfort or aversion. The biggest strength of St. Helens compared with both organic cow's milk and regular goat's milk is digestibility. Goat's milk is already easier to digest thanks to its natural protein and fat structure. But St. Helens goes a step further. Their processing is extremely gentle, not overly altering protein and not forcing the milk into an industrial uniform profile. As a result, the milk feels like it dissolves easily, sits lightly in the stomach, does not cause bloating or stomach rumbling. For those with sensitive digestion or mild lactose intolerance, St. Helens is almost always the softest choice. If you worry about nutrition, St. Helens goat's milk meets the needs of middle age, well rich in natural calcium, high quality protein, naturally higher in A2 protein, and less inflammatory. For those who do not tolerate cow's milk, even organic versions, or who find Delamere fine but want something purer and less processed, St. Helens is the answer. This is the type of milk where you can feel the care from the barn to the bottle. If you want to reach the final point in your journey to find the milk that truly suits your body, this is the destination. I believe that at this age you deserve to drink the milk your body truly needs, not the milk advertising convinces you to believe in. And you also deserve a place to ask, share, discuss, and find the answer that best suits your health. If today's content opened something new for you or made you rethink long-standing habits, do not keep it to yourself. Share it so others can be protected as you are. Leave your thoughts, experiences, and questions below. I always read, always reply, and always want to know what you are struggling with regarding your health. And if you want to continue this journey of living well, choosing correctly, and understanding properly, press subscribe. Because I promise you, what you learn from sessions like this can help you become healthier every day, starting from the most familiar things in your own kitchen.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.